Jennifer Lippman, one of the 3 health consultants here at LACOE Head Start. Today, I'll be speaking on the Environmental Health and Safety Key Performance Area Number 2, Safe and Sanitary Practices. This is one of the key performance areas from the Health and Safety Protocol that the reviewers will be using when they do our Health and Safety review this year. In this key performance area, I'll be covering the following compliance measures. 2.1, Safe and Sanitary Practices, 2.2, the Nutrition Program, and 2.3, Medication Management. This is an actual page out of the protocol, and you can access the entire protocol on the ECLIC website, but it's set up such as this with the compliance measures and then the corresponding federal regulations. Like the other sections of the protocol, this section provides the reviewers with prompts for their classroom and family child care observations, interview questions, and any pre-site information that they may need where applicable. Since the federal reviewers may seek information from classroom staff during their observations at your sites, I have included common interview questions that classroom staff may be asked by them. While viewing this presentation, we encourage you to take time to discuss appropriate responses to the sample interview questions as they appear throughout this presentation. You can pause the presentation, have staff take turns answering, and then provide feedback as needed at your own speed. I really recommend the more comfortable and familiar your staff are with these questions, the easier it will be for them to address these indicators as they pertain to the federal and state regulations, local grantee mandates, as well as your agency's specific procedures. Let's begin. 2.1, Safe and Sanitary Practices, which includes hand washing, body fluids, and diapering. So here's your first sample interview question. When is hand washing required? Hand washing. The following hand washing procedures have to happen for staff, visitors, volunteers, and children before entering the classroom, before and after eating, before and after toothbrushing, before and after using Play-Doh and water play tubs, after diapering or toilet use, or anything that's bathroom related. If we go back up to the one before entering the classroom, I usually recommend that staff become very comfortable with asking anyone that comes into their classroom to please wash their hands. The more often they ask everybody that question, the more comfortable it becomes and doesn't feel forced. I've already noticing that a number of the classrooms that I'm monitoring at, the staff have asked me if I would please wash my hands first. Usually right after I've signed in. So I know that that's something that they're very comfortable asking anyone that comes in, and I would expect that they would ask the reviewers. Staff, visitors, volunteers, and children always must wash hands before any food preparation or handling, consumption, or any other food-related activity. Whenever hands are contaminated with blood or other body fluids, and any other identified time as deemed necessary. If staff and visitors, volunteers, children, if everyone is washing hands whenever they're supposed to, they probably feels like they're washing their hands right after they wash their hands. Staff must always also remember that they should be washing hands before and after giving medications, before and after any first aid, treating or bandaging a wound, after assisting with toileting or diapering, and after assisting a child to blow or wipe his or her nose. Your programs should be trained in all these different times for hand washing, as well as monitoring that these activities are happening whenever they're needed. This slide gives you a visual of some of the key steps in hand washing. I love this picture. First, we have running water. The physical running water helps rinse away the germs, as well as the friction from rubbing your hands together. The ideal water temperature is between 60 to less than 120 degrees, However, please note, and I'm asked this all the time, you do not have to have hot water for effective hand washing. If you think about it, if the water was, it's the hot water or the warm water is for comfort, so that people will be washing their hands longer and it's more comfortable, especially in colder weather. However, it's not to kill germs. If we really needed to kill germs, the water would have to be much hotter than our skin, and especially our children's skin could handle. So you do not have to have hot water for effective hand washing. Many of our sites may actually have the hot water turned off to the children's sinks, because it can be at a site where the water heater is accessible to others, even others outside of the program, and we wouldn't want it to be inadvertently turned up over 120 degrees. So if the hot water to the sink is working, if it's turned on, programs need to, in addition to monitoring hand washing, programs need to monitor that the water is always less than 120 degrees and that water heater thermostat has not been changed. I'll see this sometimes in some of our nonprofits that have sites at churches or multiple use sites where, again, others may have access to that water heater. So again, for most sites, the actual hot water to the children's sinks is turned off. This is different than in our kitchens and our food prep areas. This would be the sinks that our children are using. Next is liquid soap. No bar soap at our sites. Pretty much now the trend is moving to everyone using liquid soap, but it is a mandate in our programs that it only be liquid soap so that there's no cross-contamination from the bars. There must be an adequate supply and a constant supply of single-use paper towels that are disposed of at, just as it sounds, single-use. No cloth reusable towels at our sites. You also can use any other approved hand drying devices. If you have a newer center with a hand dryer, that's fine too. And then again, make sure that both your soap and your paper towels are always stocked, and then that's part of the ongoing monitoring at your site. Staff should be observing our children hand washing, observing for technique and that they stay on task. They should be observing for about 20 seconds of hand washing. They can sing the happy birthday song. That's a common one. You can come up with another song. Like I've had staff ask me to wash my hands when I come in. I'm also going out to sites and seeing children singing a song or something they've been taught. And that tells me this is not just a one-time occurrence, that this good practice of, best practice of 20 seconds of hand washing and the child being able to self-monitor that 20 seconds is a habit in this site. Also making sure that children and staff and everybody are washing between their fingers. So staff are washing, that they're rubbing hands together, and they're not just playing while the water's running, that they're actually physically washing hands. And then staff should assist children as needed. Some children may need help turning the faucet on or off. Some may need a step stool if they can't reach. Some children just need help just staying on task. And we have to remember here that in California, we're also water conscious. So we're not going to stop children from hand washing the 20 seconds that they're supposed to wash. We are allowed to run the water for that hand washing, but staff need to keep an eye that the water doesn't get inadvertently left on, or that children aren't just playing in the water for longer than the hand washing activity. You'll also see in this picture that there's a sign, the steps to hand washing, and another little picture. There's actually two signs. Those are right at the child's eye level so that they can see them. I've been at sites where there's little pictures of children washing hands in the steps of hand washing that they can look at. We also see here that there's a trash can that they can easily throw the trash into. This trash can was closed up once the children were done washing. The next questions for discussion are around cleaning, sanitation, and disinfection. Remember that staff are answering these questions not only to ensure compliance with regulations, but again, they'll need to be answering according to your agency's policy. Some questions might be, what type of sanitation and/or disinfectant solutions does the agency use? They may ask teachers how and by whom is the sanitation and disinfectant solution prepared? How and where are the cleaning solutions stored? What is the dwell time for the sanitation solution, or how long does it need to stay on the surface before wiping dry? Is there a cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting schedule? When are non-porous gloves worn? And how are contaminated materials disposed of? You'll notice that for the dwell time question, I put in parentheses, or how long does it need to stay on the surface before wiping dry? There's no guarantee that a reviewer, if they ask what is the dwell time for the sanitation solution, that they're going to define what dwell time is. So that might be something that you want to talk about with your staff, and we'll talk more in detail in upcoming slides. So here's some general mandates and regulations around sanitation solutions and how we use them. Again, your policy is going to have the fine details, the type of solution specifically used at your site, specifically where they're stored, specifically who prepares it. So these are just the general pieces. You're going to need to add in the specifics. Solutions must be prepared correctly and according to the instructions. So very, very, very important. I recommend that you have those instructions easily visible to staff and visible in the areas where they're both preparing the solutions and using them so they can refer to it. If the staff aren't responsible for preparing solution, if it's a solution that's pre-mixed, comes pre-mixed, or the custodians are mixing, then they wouldn't need that information. But if they're participating in that activity, then we need to make sure they have a reference material that they can look at. All containers should be labeled with the name of the solution and the date prepared. Again, this is an area where I'll often see a non-compliance, or I've gone out to the sites and I've had findings. We cannot have any bottles that aren't labeled. So even if it's a spray bottle with just plain water that maybe the children use for water play or they use to spray on the toys, and it's just plain water, if it doesn't say plain water, we don't know that that's just plain water in there. So all bottles must be labeled, and also with the date prepared if it's a solution that you prepare. All of the cleaning, sanitation, and disinfection solutions must be stored in a locked cabinet, okay? And it's okay to use a child lock, but not stored with food. And then here's the dwell time. Observe the dwell time. So again, how long do you leave it on before drying? So for instance, with bleach solution, if you spray, for many of the bleach solutions, and again, you'll have to make sure that you verify which type of bleach you're using, how long it has to stay on the table, or the other surface that you're sanitizing. What the dwell time is you spray it on, and you must leave it there before drying it off. And the time that you leave it there is the time that's been studied. That's how long, the minimum amount of time that that solution needs to sit on that surface to adequately sanitize or disinfect those germs. So if it says it's 99.9% effective, that's only if you leave it on the surface for the indicated dwell time. Ensure that children are not present when using sanitation solutions. I've been at sites where somebody's spraying the sanitation solution on one end of the table while a child on the other end of the table is still eating. That is not acceptable. As you do your daily schedules in your classrooms, sanitizing the tables should happen when the children are in another area. And staff should know their agency's procedures. I would recommend going over these procedures. I recommend monitoring these procedures, and I recommend having this procedure at your sites for reference. Here are some examples of labeling. The one on our left is a sanitizer. The sanitizer is taken from a large bottle and placed into these bottles, and it comes with a manufacturer's label. The ones on the right are sanitation solution that the staff mix up, and you'll see there that they have to figure out a way to indicate that when they've prepared it daily. So what they do is they permanently mark, you can permanently mark the name of the sanitation solution on the bottle, and then they place a piece of tape where each day the staff can indicate that date it was the solution had been dumped and was prepared. Common findings, again, I want to emphasize the fact that we come across unlabeled bottles, or what I always hear, it had a label the last time I looked, the label must have just fell off, so you need to make sure that your labels are secure, which is why you see the one I recommended on the one on the right, that they use a permanent marker to label the bottle, so that the worst thing that comes off is the tape with the date. And then another one I hear is, well, that's not a solution we use. The custodians left it there when they were cleaning. Your monitoring and your daily monitoring should include making sure that everything is following procedure and that there's nothing in your classroom that's not supposed to be there. This is an example of the locked cabinet. Actually, this is an example of an unlocked cabinet, but there is a lock there that they can use, and reminds me to tell you that it's okay to use a child-proof lock. The solutions must be locked or if they are in an area that is used or accessed by children. Okay, and it must be locked when the solution is put back in there. This again is a common finding. I'll come into a classroom, somebody's used the sanitation solution, they set it down on the counter, they're distracted, they walk away, and sure enough, I come right in behind them, and there is the bottle sitting out and unlocked. Remember your volunteers. A lot of our volunteers will help with sanitizing the tables after meal times. This is a good activity, but make sure that they know all of the procedure that they're volunteering and helping you with, which includes using the solution correctly, leaving it on the correct amount of time, the dwell time, and also making sure that when they're finished with it, it's securely locked in the place where it's supposed to be. And remember that our solutions cannot be stored with medications or food. Next, we'll talk about the materials safety data sheet. If you must have a materials safety data sheet, some people call it the MSDS, available at the site for any of the solutions that you have. It doesn't have to be hanging up, but it must be easily available for the staff to access. Why? It's not just a mandate for no reason. This is an example of the MSDS sheet from Bleach Solution, and you can see that it will, I don't think this page has it, it'll be on, this was one of 5 pages, I do believe, but on one of those pages will be the actual ingredients. So if for some reason we needed to know the ingredients, someone had an allergic reaction, hopefully this will never happen, but if there was an accidental ingestion, we could take that sheet to the phone we call poison control, and we'd know exactly what was in that solution. It also gives you the recommended first aid for if there was an ingestion or a spill or a contact or a splash. It will give you the first aid. This page has the EPA registration number, and whenever we have a solution that we use, the national standards recommend that it be a solution that has an EPA number, because that tells us that that solution has been tested and we know that it's effective in our classrooms, keeping our children safe. And then, of course, on here, 5 pages, it's got a lot of other special instructions that you may need for one reason or another. So please, when you go back to your sites, look and see if your MSDS sheets are there, that they match the solutions that you're currently using, and if not, you need to contact your administrators and make sure that you have that. Next, we're going to talk about body fluid spills, and we'll talk about gloves. Non-porous gloves must be worn with blood or potential blood exposure. They can be latex, which is, but if you use latex, there are some people that have latex allergies, so you want to use a powder. Powder-free is preferable. It's less allergenic. They can be vinyl. Especially if you should have vinyl gloves if you've got someone at the site with latex allergies. And to remember that gloves are not a substitute for hand washing, okay? Gloves are to protect the person that's doing the cleanup, but afterwards they still need to wash their hands. Also remember that spills must be cleaned up immediately and cleaned up according to your agency's procedures and any supplies that you keep. And items must be disposed of correctly. Any blood-contaminated material or possible blood-contaminated material and any diapers or any materials around diaper changing or bathroom use should be disposed of in a plastic bag secured with a tie. So. This is, you can't see it on the slide, but I gave you the website to access it. This is a sample cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting schedule from Caring for Our Children. It's in the appendix, Appendix K. And on here it has different surfaces that are in the classroom, different activities, and how often and when you need to either clean, sanitize, or disinfect these areas in the classroom. It's expected that staff have knowledge and comply with the minimum expected schedule for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. Of course, you may have to do it more often, but they should know the minimum amount or the minimum times. This is another common thing I see at the sites. I'll ask what the schedule is, and I'll get an answer like, well, we clean or we sanitize when it's dirty. Meanwhile, you can't see germs, so I'm not sure how they know that. We do a good cleaning over the break, or we send the toys home with the parents. And there's no specific frequency or guidance or time schedule that they can refer to. So I recommend that you have this schedule or another one similar, one made specific for your site, that you have it available and easy for the staff to reference, that they know what it is, and then that you're monitoring that they're following it. I just wanted to take a time here to mention Caring for Our Children, and that the website here for Caring for Our Children, you can not only access Appendix K, but you can access the entire edition and the current edition of Caring for Our Children. The third edition is the one that's in print, but the nice thing about the one online is that if there's any thing that needs to be revised right away, real time, you can have access to it online. So I actually recommend the online version. These are the health and safety standard, national health and safety standards for childcare in schools. We have our performance standards. This was actually modeled after them. But the nice thing about Caring for Children is it gives us a lot more of specifics around types of activities like cleaning and sanitizing and hand washing. So I recommend when you're doing your policies or you're working with your staff that you reference both performance standards and Caring for Our Children around these activities. Next, we're moving to diapering procedures. And these next questions are around those procedures. The first one is, what is your agency's diapering procedure? And the second one is there a designated area or areas in the classroom and or the site for diaper changing? The following are similar to your sanitation procedures. The following are general diapering procedures, and the specifics will be in your agency's diapering procedure. So staff should know the procedure, and it should be at the site, preferably posted in the designated area for diapering. That said, a lot of times staff will say, we don't have to diaper. We don't diaper. There's nobody at our site with diapers. However, this procedure also includes any procedures for changing children with pull-ups or those that are still potty training, or any child that may have that accident and had soiled their clothing. The general procedures include washing hands before diaper changing, having all your supplies ready, always having at least one hand on the child, especially if they're anywhere but on the floor. If they're up on any raised surface, we should always have at least one hand on the child. You're going to begin by cleaning the child's diaper area. If wearing gloves, once you've cleaned the diaper area, remove the gloves and or change them prior to putting on a clean diaper. You're going to wash the child's hands. You're going to return the child to a supervised area and then go back and clean and disinfect the diaper changing area. Properly dispose of the waste Of course, wash your own hands and then record the eliminations so that you can later let the parents know. You can see this is not all the entire procedure. These are just your general mandates that must be included in all diapering procedures, and then you'll add your agency specifics to your own agency procedure. Now we're going to move into 2.2, which is nutrition. We're big on nutrition in Head Start. This is not exhaustive of everything that has to do with nutrition, but it is the compliance measures that the protocol includes. The LACOE Head Start nutrition consultants here at the grantee have been working closely on this section with the nutrition coordinators at your agency and with the consultants, but we wanted everyone to be familiar with it. For any additional information, you can refer to your coordinator or consultants or the LACOE Head Start nutrition gym. So here's some sample interview questions. Are there any children at the site that are currently on breast milk or formula? Are there any children at your site with food allergies or accommodations? What is your procedure for the storage of breast milk? And how is the breast milk prepared for feeding? Breast milk and formula. It's expected that staff will know the procedures for the storage and use of breast milk at your center. This is most likely going to be at our early Head Starts only. And now with our additional early Head Start sites at the grantee, we may see more use of breast milk. So again, making sure that the staff are very familiar with the specific storage and use procedures. It's also important with our children that are still on formula that staff know the procedure for preparation of formula and then the subsequent storage of any formula. And again, you can refer to the nutrition gym for additional mandates. These are questions that are specifically going to be directed to your nutrition coordinator during the review, but they're here for your reference. They'll be asked to describe how the program meets the individual nutritional needs and feeding requirements of all children, complies with USDA nutrition requirements, addresses special dietary needs of children, accommodates the feeding and nutritional needs of children with disabilities, and lastly, ensures that foods posing a high risk of choking for infants and toddlers, for example, hot dogs, whole grapes, hard raw vegetables, popcorn, and whole nuts, are not given to children. Nutrition, in addition to the questions that they ask the nutrition coordinator, they will also ask for pre-site documents in this area. So they'll ask ahead of time before they get there for us to have ready for them. Has the program had a USDA inspection in the last 12 months? What was the date of the last USDA inspection? What was the outcome of the inspection? Passed with concerns, or failed? And if the program passed with concerns or failed, what issues were cited? And have the issues been corrected? The last compliance measures that I'll be speaking to is medication management. And here are some sample interview questions. And this, of course, if you've seen me out at your sites, you know that this is my favorite area to talk about, my favorite area to train in, and my favorite area to monitor in. So both because this is my passion, and second of all, because it is so important to me that we have good, safe, tight medication procedures out there at the agencies to protect both you and our children. So the first question is, which children in your classroom have medications? So you'll be asked that. You'll be asked, who in your class has medications? They'll ask, have you been trained on medication administration? They'll ask they can ask where and how are the medications stored, and when should you take the medications with you when you leave the classroom? The following are some basic regulations and mandates around medication procedures. Like the other compliance measures, your agency is going to have very specific steps also as part of their agency's medication procedure, so you must be familiar with the ones specific for your agency. But here are some general ones that everyone includes. The first one is medications must be in an original pharmacy labeled container and over-the-counter medications in the original container. So if it's a medication, which most of our medications are, that were ordered by a physician or a nurse practitioner, the child's health care provider, it should be from the pharmacy, and the medication that we get at the site should be one with an original pharmacy label, not one that was transferred to another storage container or bottle. Should not be in somebody else's bottle. It should be in the original pharmacy labeled container. A couple things can happen. One of the choices that the family can do is they can ask the pharmacy to please split the medication. So if it's a bottle of medication, kind of figure out with the pharmacist how many doses would be at school and how many doses would be at home, and they can label it in 2 different bottles. You can ask the physician or the pharmacist, the parent can, for a second medication to be stored at school. There must be at the site written physician authorization and parent permission, both signed, one by the physician, one by the parent, including the dosage and frequency. Licensing requires that our parents give permission for the staff at the sites to give the medication. The performance standards require that we have physicians' documentation of the physician's orders or the healthcare provider. So we look for 2 specific things: physician authorization and parent permission. Some agencies, this is on one form, front and back, top and bottom, or for many agencies, it's 2 separate forms, but both are required. The label on the medication should match the physician authorization, the parent permission, and the medication log. So all the paperwork should correspond, and that's usually the responsibility of the person or persons designated at your agency to set up the medications at the site. They should be verifying all that before you ever have to give the medication. We check for expiration dates. We cannot have medications that are expired. We can't give medications that are expired. All medications in our grantee at every agency must have a LACOE medication checklist. This is a standardized form across the grantee. It's the only form for medications that is standardized, because it's often easier for agencies to use their own agency-wide form, especially our school districts. Already have medication forms for the physician and the parent to complete, probably good all the way up through 12th grade. So to keep everything consistent, tight, and without any mistakes, we instituted an additional form, the LACOE medication checklist, and I recommend that you become very familiar with that because it lists all the steps you should know, and it's the last slide, one of the last slides that we'll go over. Emergency medications, when they're stored, we always have to keep 2 things in mind, and almost all the medications we give are emergency medications: asthma medications, EpiPens for an allergy, medications for seizures. So they must be easily accessible to staff. Staff must be able to easily access the medications so they need them in an emergency, and they must still, though, be inaccessible to children. So they don't need to be locked, but they need to be stored up where the children can't get to them, and secure, but still where the staff can get to them. Again, you will look at your agency's procedure to see exactly where at your sites medications are stored. So we're going to look here at some examples, because pictures tell 1,000 words. So here's some pictures of medications and some things I found wrong. And so I encourage you, when you're looking at these slides, to call out what you see or don't see. I wish I was there to hear what you have to say, but this is the next best thing, so share with your elbow partner or whoever you're watching this with. What would be wrong with this? No label. So hopefully you've figured that out. If you didn't, now you know. All our medications must be labeled. We talked about that. The original pharmacy label, or in the original over-the-counter container. And you can see here that this EpiPen and this albuterol inhaler, neither of them have a label. We wouldn't know who they belong to. Expired medications. We can't have expired medications, and so this was kind of a trick. If you look closely, you'll see that the expiration date that's on the bottom of the box was April 2015. And I came here in the early spring of 2000. Actually, I think I was in the spring of 2014 that I was doing some monitoring, and I came across this. And the person that processed it probably saw the April 2015 on the box and thought it was okay, but then unfortunately, when I took the medication out of the box, it said March 2014, and so somehow this had gotten switched. We can only assume how, but I'm not going to say that hopefully it was an accident, and this medication was expired. Here, I don't know if you can see, try to look real closely, you can see that the bag has a name on it, the one on the right, just a first name, and then all the medications are just in there unlabeled. So we don't know if those are really Diana or Brianna's medications. I can't even barely read the name. And then on the right, my guess is that this medication is an inhaler. Usually the inhalers are the pharmacy labels on the box, but maybe the box was lost, wasn't brought in, got destroyed, and so in attempting to do the right thing, someone labeled it with the child's name, but that's not the original pharmacy label. Matter of fact, it doesn't even have the last name. This medication is, the problem with this, anybody can tell? I'm going to have you look for a second. This medication, the physician authorization form on the left is for albuterol or prednisone, and the medication that was with it was Xopenex. Now, Xopenex and albuterol are very similar. They do a lot of the same things. They're used for the same thing as a rescue medication for asthma, but they're not exactly the same. Xopenex is actually generic as levobuterol, and that is not the same thing as albuterol, like in the same family, maybe cousins. And so we can't substitute one for the other. So whoever was processing the medication should have verified that which was supposed to be had at the site, either the albuterol or the Xopenex. Next is storage. Both these pictures are examples of medications that are stored. First of all, they're stored in something that's easily transportable so that it can be taken outside on the playground, field trips, if we evacuate, drills, and those are all reasons that medications should be taken with you pretty much whenever the child leaves the room. Two different types of storage units, but both easily accessible and stored correctly. The one on the left, the box, the little tricky when you look at it, you might have said, oh my gosh, that's accessible to children. Actually, the way I took the picture, you can't tell that it's way up above the cubbies, so the children cannot access it. But and the one on the right is a really good picture of medications in a backpack, which is what we're transitioning to it all across the grantee. There's a hook on the wall, securely put the backpack. It's got the medications and a few other items that you might need if you had to evacuate, easy for the designated staff person to take with them. And it's the red backpack, not the blue backpack. And you can see that it's easily accessible to staff, not accessible to children, and take it right when you're walking out the door. This is a picture of the backpacks we ordered at the grantee. They have this logo on the right on them. Most of our agencies are using those if they didn't already have existing backpacks like the red one in the slide prior. But this again allows us to be in compliance with the most current recommendations, which are that medications can be easily transported when the child is not in the classroom. Lastly, I wanted to show you the medication checklist. Hopefully you have it available with you right there while you're watching this, but if not, you can certainly access it. And this is our standardized form. It aligns with Section 3B3 of our health gym. Again, it's a mandated standardized form, and it's our way of verifying that all medication procedures, the medications and the forms are all in place and the way they're supposed to be, so that we have good, tight medication procedures out at the sites. This up on top, 1 through 11, are different things that the staff and the parent can both initial and verify as they're checking in the medication. There's a spot for some notes. And then at the bottom, Part 2 is a spot for ongoing monitoring to be documented throughout the year for this medication, as well as documenting regular communication with the family. And whenever we have a child that's on a medication at school, we need to check in regularly to see how the child's doing, what is the status of their diagnosis, how are we doing with this particular medicine, either at home or at school or both, and whether or not we need to encourage them to go back to their provider and share anything that's been going on at school. There's also room on the back to write notes. So I thank you. That is the end of my section of the protocol. I thank you for your time and encourage you to work closely with your health staff to go over the things in this slide, to ask questions, make sure that you are familiar with your specific agency's procedures, and then you're welcome. They can contact me if we need more information at your agency. Thank you so much and good luck.